Origin Jazz Home UX, and this is the Manta Ray, how America's futuristic underwater drone will change warfare. This was on Megaprojects. This is a recent video. I mean, isn't Manta Ray like, or am I confusing, like some kind of a sea creature, like, like floppy wing type of thing? I don't know. But I guess that's how this submarine looks. This is a new, I'm guessing this is one of the newer concept of submarine. Or is it already under development? I don't know. But yeah, I'm guessing this is like one of those like like super secret things that like leaked or something, right? Type of way. Because this is not your conventional things like, oh, the F-22 is going to get replaced by NGAD. Oh, this is the new submarine. This is the new aircraft carrier. No, this is some even next level shit, right? Like how the what is it called? Dark Star, right? Dark Star or something like that. There's a plane that's supposed to be like a unmanned, like really fast, like spy type of plane. So this is some similar that, like some really next level thing. So it's going to be very interesting. So yeah, let's do it. Remember, if you like my Rick, don't forget to subscribe so that way I know we start videos to tomorrow. Check out the Rick, there's a link in the decision. And yeah, let's do it.
The world's oceans are a brutal and unforgiving place. In the cold, murky depths, everything is a hunter, everything is hunted, and one day, everything is food. From sharks and barracuda whose teeth can shear any sort of flesh, to deep-diving whales that do battle with mighty cephalopods in near-complete darkness, to bioluminescent tricksters that can coax an unsuspecting fish straight up into their mouths, there are no shortage of ways to be destroyed in the depths. But now, a new predator is emerging from the deep, one that's traded in its gills and scales and its sharp teeth in exchange for twisted metal and cold robotic intelligence. Its name is the Manta Ray, a new and futuristic underwater drone that intends to redefine the very nature.
Oh, so it is named after that sea creature. And is that sea creature like fly really low or something? I don't know. But yeah, something like that. I mean, that's the whole intro of this video, right? So I'm guessing this submarine is going to be really deep or something.
Of underwater warfare. Hardy, independent, and entirely innovative, this newest DARPA project is one part an evolution into true modern warfare, and one part an evolution from the very same creatures that have prowled the depths for so long. So today at Megaprojects, we're going to get as close a look as we can at this new piece of hardware before it dives back down again toward the seafloor and waits to re-emerge where it's least expected. The first indicator that the Manta Ray program ever existed came from a February 2020 news release from America's Department of Defense. Amidst a rather routine set of announcements, giving money to Raytheon for aircraft carrier radar, to Black Construction for an antenna facility, to the Charles Stark Draper Laboratory for some missile guidance system, was one allotted to serve the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, better known around the world as DARPA. An exceptionally advanced agency that seeks to be on the cutting edge of tomorrow's technology and usually does a pretty darn good job of it. Any big checks awarded to a DARPA client.
DARPA is literally the forefront of everything, literally the frontier, right? Most things you know of, like revolutionary things, basically probably come from DARPA. It came from DARPA, then like some companies took that and just like commercialized, and now we everyday use it.
Going to be cause for intrigue. And this one was absolutely no different. Lockheed Martin was getting $12 million for something called the Manta Ray Program Phase 1. What DARPA wanted specifically was, quote, the research, development, and demonstration of the Manta Ray extra-large unmanned underwater vehicle, with an estimated date of completion less than a year after the release was sent out. Not long after, DARPA confirmed the program and sprinkled in a few details. Not only the other companies DARPA wanted to work with, but that the Manta Ray they were building would be, quote, long-duration, long-range, payload capable. Not only was it intended to hang out underwater for a very long time, but it could travel quite a bit while doing so, and it was even intended to be armed. Naturally, the emergence of a program to design an extra-large unmanned underwater vehicle, or UUV, basically a drone submarine, was cause for some pretty substantial curiosity around the defense world. Add to that the fact that the program seemed to have a pretty cool, even badass name, and well, what more could you want for a DARPA project or a Megaprojects video? A good bit more information about the program emerged in the following year, in February of 2021, when DARPA issued its own press release and announced that the program would be continued, partnering with 3 contractors, with Lockheed Martin actually not among them. Instead, DARPA was working with the defense giant Northrop Grumman, the company Metron Incorporated, and Martin Defense Group, which is different than Lockheed Martin, despite their names being somewhat similar. Before long, Northrop Grumman and Martin Defense Group would be brought into Phase 2 of the program, commencing in late 2021. By the time those Stage 2 contracts were handed out, DARPA had already decided to let the public in on what exactly was going on, at least in general terms. Per DARPA, the objective of the Manta Ray program was to develop UUVs that could operate not just as an unmanned drone, but as an autonomous one. The Manta Ray would be designed to operate for, quote, extended durations without the need for on-site human logistics support or maintenance. Although DARPA was...
See, Northrop thing makes sense, because even with like YF-23 and obviously like B-2, one thing I realized, like, Northrop is type of company that goes like too over the top, and sometimes that comes with a large cost and like even inconvenience, but it's like over the top type of technology. This feels like that. Manta Ray feels like next generation, like drone, basically unmanned, right? Trying to do some frontier or some ridiculous thing. So they're like, yeah, Northrop is probably the right choice.
Vague, the program was aimed at addressing issues with energy management for long-endurance underwater drones, and in keeping with a drone that was intended to do something that no other platform seemed to be doing at that time, it would pick up some extra skills as well. Those included ways to deal with undersea corrosion, avoid obstacles on its own, deal with the accumulation of plants, algae, and barnacles that typically happens underwater, and a lot more. The drone would be able to detect and classify underwater hazards and, quote, counter detection threats while responding to changing conditions under the sea. Critically, the role of the Metron company was specified further to, quote, advance progress on a novel energy harvesting subsystem. Or that is to say, they were working on a way to keep the drone powered up that didn't rely on any traditional power source or any existing method of collecting energy from the environment that was known at that time. Finally, the world even got to see some concept art, revealing a sleek, nearly seamless metal craft that, if it had been pictured flying in the air, would have been perfectly believable as a design for America's next hyper-advanced stealth bomber. Underwater, though, it looked eerily like the program's namesake, the Manta Ray. By the end of 2021, it appeared that the Manta Ray program was doing very well. DARPA and its partner organizations were already in possession of the technologies that they hoped would allow them to overcome the myriad challenges Manta Ray was supposed to deal with, and those technologies had already been checked out and found to be ready to move on. Said the program manager for the product, Commander Carl Werner, in late 2021, Manta Ray is uniquely positioning itself to simultaneously introduce a new class of underwater vehicle while contributing key component technologies to other vital.
Yeah, to me it feels like this might be one of the supplements to NGAD and type like that, right? I mean, which video was that I've seen? Like, was it Sandbox? I don't remember exactly. Who talked about like a future of anything like NGAD and things like that will be supported by this different type of drones in the skies, drones in the sea. Why not? To me, it feels like America will be one of the first countries to like really change in a way that feels very foreign, right? Foreign compared to all other countries, basically, like completely different, like drone warfare, like unmanned thing. When you remove man from an equation, right, you have to worry about a man inside. No, it's like unmanned. You can do way too many things, right? You can mechanically make that really insane.
Undersea programs. Over the following months, and then years, Phase 2 would involve the construction and testing of entire full-scale underwater vehicles, integrating the requisite technologies even at that early stage. Then, on April the 8th, 2024, Northrop Grumman dropped the big announcement. On that day, Northrop Grumman unveiled its Manta Ray to the world in the form of a full-scale technology demonstrator.
Whoa.
That demonstrator had already spent months performing full-scale real-world testing off the southern coast of California, a stretch of sea known for its complex ocean currents, its kelp forests, its underwater mountains and canyons, its abundant small and large sea life, and exceptional amounts of maritime traffic, including both large trade vessels and major US naval assets. Per Commander Werner, the program manager, the Manta Ray has passed its testing and is confirmed ready to move on toward real-world operations. The great metal beast was now out on the water, and if DARPA's confidence in the program is any indication, then there may be no going back.
Usually that's how DARPA thing goes, right? DARPA don't go half-ass, right? If DARPA goes like, okay, this is what we are doing, let's go, this like spearhead through this thing. Because if DARPA passed something, okay, now we are doing this, is past the staging of like ideas, and now we are fully going to R&D, they're probably going to go through with it. Because everything DARPA does is ridiculous. That's what is ridiculous things in this way. It's basically frontier that feels very foreign, very different, but that's pioneering, right? That's what DARPA does. So DARPA, like, yeah, I mean, drone is the future. We are already moving towards that with NGAD and many other things. So let's do this.
Now, there's a lot that the world doesn't yet know about the Manta Ray, and with advanced stages of testing still in progress, it stands to reason that there are probably still things even the Manta Ray team doesn't know about the Manta Ray. At least for now, of course. Unfortunately, we won't be able to provide information on things like a top speed and endurance time underwater or the specifics of its internal payload. We'd be glad to report those, of course, but as of now, DARPA have
Imagine as soon as they made it, like, what is quarter mile on that? Like, what? Fast and Furious music plays in the background. Yeah, that's what we do here.
That we here at Megaprojects can't ever look inside all their secret classified goodies, as cool as that would be. But we do know something about the Manta Ray already. These days, the Manta Ray name refers not just to the program, but the specific prototype put forward by Northrop Grumman. Its precise dimensions are as yet unannounced, and people connected to the project have been very hesitant on giving these sorts of figures. But we know that it's really, really big. Despite issues in establishing perspective in the images that have been released from its testing, the UUV appears to be at least a good bit larger than the rigid inflatable dinghies and the small observation boats that have been pictured around it. It's a good bit longer than it is wide, featuring a nearly flat profile when looking at it straight on. Its delta wings stretch out to either side before tapering into a rounded wing, appearing neither particularly long nor particularly short, while at the rear of the UUV, a vertical tailplane appears to be about 3 to 4 feet tall, judging by images that show people standing atop the Manta Ray. While images haven't yet shown its underbelly, we can glean.
Yeah, see, whenever people see things like that, they're automatically asking, what is our fixation with animals, right? Why are we making this after fish? Why are we making something planes and things looking like a bird? Same thing with the cars. Why are we taking inspiration from shark and things? The reason is because those things exist and those things work. Those things are aerodynamic since they are fucking working, right? So real Manta Ray is obviously working underwater like that. It's big. So that is a starting point. Like if we keep the design like that and improve it from there, like we don't have to think about from scratch like what type of shape we are going to mold slowly, basically. So that's how things go.
That's where the propulsion mechanism is likely to be housed, considering that only the bare traces of a propulsion system can be observed at the very back of the drone. Toward the front of it, the Manta Ray features 2 dark slits, almost where you'd imagine the eyes to be, although their purpose is unclear. The metal plating of the Manta Ray does include distinct edges and ridges, potentially increasing its profile for sonar detection, but whether that represents the finished product or Northrop Grumman didn't want to bother with a stealthier, sleek coating for a prototype is unknown. Like the actual living Manta Ray, its UUV sister is meant to navigate the ocean during its active phases via a sea glider configuration. That should allow it to use less power to move, especially in long journeys where not much maneuvering would be required. Moving efficiently, the Manta Ray could conceivably be able to ride ocean currents in times of less urgent need while gliding through the water at a fairly decent clip if it needs to get someplace fast. Alongside its underwater capabilities, we've learned more about how it's moved around on land. Per Northrop Grumman, it's designed to break down and fit into 5 standard-sized shipping containers where it can then be shipped to a deployment location and reassembled in whatever place it's expected to engage in combat. And then there's the question of the Manta Ray's energy harvesting system. Per Northrop Grumman, the Manta Ray...
We are making Manta Ray. It's like Manta Ray looking ship. And it's gonna have weapons. Like what? I thought it was a research. Research? Get the fuck out of it. This is America, Jack. It's gonna have weapons. It obviously is for warfare.
is capable of anchoring to the sea
Obviously, I'm joking. I know DARPA do research things and all that, right? GPS and everything. I know that.
floor while in a low-powered dormant state. Animations of the Manta Ray's purported capabilities show it releasing a harvester device, one that seems to draw its energy from currents of the ocean and harvest that energy
This
on
is
behalf
ridiculous,
of the Manta Ray.
man.
In reality, though, the apparatus converts energy from something called the thermal gradient of the ocean, the difference in temperature between the ocean's warmer
I don't know how to explain this. Like, what specific thing makes this different? But this all feels like a step in another direction, isn't it? Like, it's not like all the equipment that people have, like America has. This feels like, okay, taking a step more forward, right? With all the technology, it feels like I don't know, like one of those movies things, like, 100 years, like this is like 2100s or something. shit like this would exist there, right? This is what it feels like.
Water generally flowing closer to the surface, and it's colder water generally further into the depths. As defense expert Alex Hollins put it via Sandbox while describing the program, quoting here, in effect, UUVs, like the Manta Ray, can use the thermal energy pod like a gas station, returning to fill up any time their onboard stores are running
Sandbox make a video about this? How did I miss that one? Okay.
low. But the thermal energy pod is just one of the methods that DARPA is exploring to power the Manta Ray. And as far as we can tell via publicly available information, the agency hasn't yet decided on which mechanism to use. The primary alternative is something called RED, or reversed electrodialysis, which draws voltage from differences in water salinity, or how salty the water is. To utilize this method, the Manta Ray would leverage a series of compartments separated by specially designed membranes, with some compartments holding fresh water and the others holding seawater. Let the water in each compartment interact in specific ways via separating membranes, and they'll actually generate their own electrical currents, which the Manta Ray can then capture and store. Perhaps most important of all is the Manta Ray's ability to go autonomous for long periods of time. It's very, very hard to transmit messages underwater, to the point that most autonomous underwater vehicles have to either come back to the surface frequently to receive instructions, stay close to the source of their instructions, or maintain a wired connection to either a crewed vessel or a transceiver on the surface. But the Manta Ray is intended to be survivable underwater for a very long time, alternating back and forth between states of anchored dormant recharge and active movement through the water. The specifics on how exactly that works and whether the Manta Ray can receive further signals underwater via a mechanism that we don't yet know about are still very hazy, but we do know that it can send messages without coming to the surface by leveraging small devices that Northrop calls data bubbles that can float back to the surface, use a communications antenna, and send information back to command element.
I mean, we can do this. It's not that foreign. If we really, the point here is like how important or relevant for whatever they're trying to do will this be, so they can actually invest into like broadening this technology so they can communicate better. Like, are they going to do more than Manta Ray like that underwater? Then they need some like structure like that so they can, I mean, they can do that, right? We as humanity, mostly America, has done ridiculous shit that with hindsight we're like, oh, of course it's doable, but before it was done it's like, what the hell? So this doesn't feel that far off, right? We can do this, but it's just like, what is the importance factor? Like, what is the priority on that?
While the UUV itself continues its work. But even a UUV that can just go incommunicado for a long stretch of time and still remain functional while carrying out mission objectives would be a major improvement on anything the US or other world nations are known to possess in their arsenals. Of course, there's still one question that looms above all else. What is the Manta Ray actually intended to do? Per DARPA itself, around the 2022 and 2023 range, the Manta Ray's use was more scientific in purpose than anything else. In an interview with the agency's internal Voices from DARPA podcast series, the program manager, Carl Werner, and a project advisor focused on potential civilian uses, like high-precision sonar mapping of the seafloor, a place where, as they noted, humans have only mapped about 10% of territory at this moment in history. They also emphasized the drone's potential to help understand the ocean environment and the importance of having proof of concept that a UUV could last longer than a couple of days out on its own. But while all of those potential benefits are certainly legitimate ones, and while it would undoubtedly
the scientist in me just like happiness, just like like surged from this there, right? Yeah, mapping of the floor, finally something that can do it, right? If now thinking about the whole video now, like what is Manta Ray supposed to be and supposed to do? Yeah, it can do it, right? That would be so good. Right, like there is way too many unknowns. One of the biggest, I think, the weak point and minus point, let's just say, of humanity in general, right? Like with all the technologies and all the ridiculous things we've done in space, we don't know what is in our ocean. At least in that way, we haven't mapped our ocean like that. Now, one of the biggest thing is like mostly there wasn't much of incentive in that way, like that much investment. But if something like Manta Ray can do it, yeah, that would be awesome, right? The more research, and DARPA is like like it's not just defense one, it's like research as well. So yeah, that would be so good. We might discover things. This can lead to other scientific agencies, right? Whatever this discover could be expanded by that. This thing can point towards points of interest if this was video game that others researchers can grab onto. This is really good.
It'd be cool to have the Manta Ray doing its thing underwater for civilian and research purposes. The program's close proximity to the US military, plus its leveraging of a major defense contractor, have led to zero illusions in the defense world about what its true purpose probably is. Northrop Grumman didn't mince words either. At around the same time that DARPA was talking about seafloor mapping, the defense giant was publishing its own features on how the Manta Ray could, quote, address the complex nature of undersea warfare. Northrop Grumman emphasizes the Manta Ray's high payload capacity, its ability to create strategic surprise while maintaining its own command, control, and communications capability. The information it collects will enhance the ability of other warfighting elements to do their work, while hypothetically it could carry its own weapons on board for solo missions or even work in concert with other naval elements in combined operations.
I mean, yeah, people think whoever dominates the sea dominates everything, and that has been the case since the British Empire, like early days of that, right? That's why British Empire had such a mighty navy, right? But like America's like, yeah, but that was then, right? Now it's like whoever literally controls the water, like from inside of it, right, is gonna dominate. It kind of makes sense. Like people don't even think about like how deep the water goes, like how to map the sea. But if USA maps the sea, right, can control that, it can control a lot of things. It's like it's a surprise warfare, right? Biggest thing of U-boats was kind of this mentality. Nothing was underwater before U-boats, and U-boats just changed the game. It's like, what the fuck? It was panicking everyone. This could be something similar to that, because yes, there are submarines, but if this like maps everything, goes to really deeper depths and everything, right? And there are many of them, and like that can change the whole warfare, right? Undersea warfare and the whole feel of it, right?
Although it's not yet in frontline service, the Manta Ray's capabilities represent a major leap forward for the United States' capabilities at sea, as well as an evolution in the nature of naval warfare overall.
Yeah.
Here, and on our sister channel, War at Graphics, we've spoken many times about the changing nature of warfare to favor low-cost, easy-to-produce swarms of drones, both in the air and on the water. And although price figures on the Manta Ray aren't known, it's clear already that the new UUV has a whole lot to offer in that regard. First, there's the Manta Ray's potential use as an offensive weapon, where its autonomous survivability grants it a whole new level of potential utility. The payload capacity for the Manta Ray is unknown, but given the size of the UUV, it's likely to be able to pack a good amount of heat. That payload could include things like sea mines, torpedoes, or even just a big internal bomb that would convert it into a kamikaze drone if need be. Ukraine's war against Russia in the Black Sea has proven just how effective surface drones can be when operating on the water, and a bigger, stealthier drone operating under the waterline could be a major threat to surface vessels if it were to launch similar sorts of attacks, steering close to a vessel and then exploding on impact. Like Ukraine's relatively cheap surface drones can sink expensive Russian warships with hundreds of souls on board, the Manta Ray could probably do the same. Add to that the vessel's capability for both long-range and long-endurance missions. To explain why that's so helpful, we'll use a hypothetical, a potential conflict between America backing up Taiwan and China playing out in the South China Sea. Launch that conflict today, and American naval and air assets in the region will have to do their best to hold out while reinforcements steam across the Pacific in a way that China could easily track with its own spy satellites. But let's say that America launches 100, 300, 1,000 Manta Ray UUVs right now in peacetime from the west coast of the United States, in their own territorial waters. After a season or so spent crossing the Pacific at their own slow, nearly undetectable pace, an entire major fleet of Manta Rays could loiter off the Taiwanese or even the Chinese coast undetected, popping up to the surface every few weeks and checking in to see if there's any encrypted message to shift the...
I don't know about that, right? Undersea detectors and things like that are real. I'm pretty sure China has them in China Sea, as they call it, right? I'm pretty sure it's there. So like, they would know something's there, something's moving there type of way. I'm pretty sure they would know that. But yeah, they will... I don't know if they could, like specifically know like what's happening, right? I don't know.
Them into readiness mode, and then returning to a dormant state where they could remain basically indefinitely until a crisis ever flared up. If it did, and 1,000 bomb-laden Manta Rays all came to life with instructions to intercept a Chinese fleet, then that potential war might be over before it begins. We should be very clear here. That's an imagined hypothetical, and one that makes a lot of suppositions about what the Manta Ray can do and how. But even if the craft's capabilities are different in practice, the capacity for this drone to add massive disruptive elements to a future war are critical to understand anyhow. Then there's all the things that the Manta Ray could offer in an active defense role, with potentially the most critical use being submarine detection. As the defense expert we quoted earlier, Alex Hollins, explained it, the United States currently has very limited capacity to scan its coastal waters for submarines from foreign nations, and what it would take to build enough ships to fill that role would ultimately be both cost prohibitive and far too slow. But produce a high number of manta rays and send them on patrol across the waters outside the US, and they could make a really massive difference in informing America about what's going on in its friendly seas. If the US wishes, the Manta Ray could monitor threats as they move, beaming information back while tracking them almost undetectable in their wake. Using a trail of data bubbles,
Manta Ray is going to be like surveillance drone now, not just drone. So yeah, it's one of the jobs of drones. It's a drone, it's an underwater drone. It just makes sense.
Manta Ray can send updates on its location, the threat it's dealing with, and its current course, all while seamlessly remaining in pursuit. Or if need be, a Manta Ray could conceivably respond with force, attacking enemy submarines while they're deep in the ocean and susceptible to quick destruction or stranding because of the intense pressure around them. And when taking a broad view of what this platform could be capable of, it could have a global impact in seemingly limitless ways. The Manta Ray could conceivably be tasked with making secretive deliveries to special forces soldiers far afield, showing up in the dead of the night at a quiet beach halfway across the world before disappearing again just moments later. It could conduct reconnaissance at depths that submarines can't go to, and in places where America's full-size subs are simply too big to pass undetected. Swarms of them could operate in companion roles to individual surface vessels or submarines, or even entire fleets, hybridizing the US Navy in a similar fashion to the US Air Force. It could lay mines, it could detect minefields, evaluate maritime emergencies, or sneak in close to foreign ports and naval bases in order to conduct reconnaissance. And we'd be willing to bet that if these are the potential uses that we can think of, then the best minds at the Pentagon are already several steps ahead.
Yeah.
At this moment in history, it seems clear that the future of naval warfare will have little in common with it.
It can do this, it can do that, we can even dance for the fishes, why not? Like, entertain them. It can do everything. It just makes sense.
Major warships seem, day after day, to be more a concentration of spent money and vulnerable human lives than expressions of true power. And the nations and the navies of the world are in the earlier stages of a scramble to compensate. But in a new sphere, where new tactics and technologies are emerging constantly, the Manta Ray has the potential to put the United States miles ahead of the competition, prowling the deep to deal with the threats of today and prevent or win the wars of tomorrow.
There you go. Yep. It just makes sense. Like, this is some next generation thing. Like whatever futuristic thing. It just feels futuristic. Any drones kind of feel futuristic. But drones like this really feels futuristic, right? It can even have like autonomy itself, right? What concerns me that, if they don't broaden their communication element of the undersea warfare, and like Manta Ray has to constantly raise up just to communicate, there could be a problem with communication at a level that could be problematic, right? Similar to Cuban Missile Crisis, how one submarine didn't get the message or something, and they were just ready to launch nukes before one guy said screw that, we're not doing it, and just stop the war, right? Something like that. If it got a message to attack, and then suddenly peace thing happened, and it's still underwater doing its thing and hasn't risen up for the new communication, that could be a problem. But I don't know. But yeah, right, well, that was the Manta Ray, how America's futuristic underwater drone will change warfare by the channel Megaprojects. If you like my content, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you next time.